and welcome to another edition of the Rorschach Test Podcast. I am your host, Tyrell James. Today I got a special guest with me, Dr. Nicole Thomas. How are you doing today?
I'm great. And yourself?
I am doing amazing, amazing. I have really been looking forward to this podcast. Um, Ever since we first met, ever
Me
since
too.
our very first conversation, I knew that I wanted to interview you. So I have been definitely looking forward to this. I had no idea that our conversation was not only going to turn into me interviewing you, but you and I doing a show together. We can get into that later on, but we're going to tell everybody about the show that you and I have together as well. So,
Yes, and that's super exciting.
yes, yes, me too, definitely. Okay, so but before we kind of get into these pictures, actually, I'm just going to let everybody know, just in case it's their first time watching. So what I do here at the Rorschach Test Podcast is I put up a series of Rorschach or inkblot tests, and I ask my guests what they see. So based off of what they see, I make some sort of emotional or psychological connection to not only what it is that they do for a living, but also just we're going to kind of tap into childhood, adolescence, adulthood, just kind of go through your life cycle. And I'm going to just tap into certain parts of your life, but from a psychological and emotional standpoint. So look at you. You did.
This is going to get interesting.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Um, okay, but before we get into any of the pictures, just let everybody know exactly what you do and who you are.
Well, my name is Nicole Thomas. I'm a doctor of metaphysics, and I'm a certified professional life coach. And my focus is mind, body, and spirit.
Okay. And you do oracle readings as well. That
I
does that
do.
fall
I
under
do.
metaphysics?
Say that again.
Does that fall under metaphysics or life coaching, or is it separate from both?
I mean, I guess you could put it under metaphysics, but it's different than the life coaching.
Okay.
And most people don't understand the premise behind oracle readings or even something as simple as um, fortunes and fortune cookies. And it's
Mhm.
under the premise that we draw everything to us, which is a law. It's a law of the universe. So everything that comes to us, we draw to us. So it's just under that premise. God is all things. Um, God talks through everything, uses everything, is everything. So it's just under the premise of we draw everything to us.
Right. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, the
wait,
law of attraction. hmm Yep, absolutely.
absolutely.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and get into one of these pictures here. So
Okay.
tell me, what did you say that you saw here?
An African witch doctor.
An African witch doctor. Are you able to break down the parts of this picture to tell me exactly how you saw this?
I can. So the to the left and the right on both sides um, are the arms.
hmm
So and the legs. I almost need to point to it. So the legs are on the lower side on each side,
Look, I
kind
can
of
see
bent.
you pointing. The people watching cannot see you pointing. I can see you pointing, but they can't. But go ahead though.
So the legs are like slightly. They're not slightly. They're actually bent to the side.
hmm
So he's in sitting position. The hair or those things on both sides by the arm, it almost looks like hair or feathers or some, kind of almost hair. And the face is in the middle, a long legated face and a slender body that's connected to the legs.
Okay. All right. I can see that. I can
Yeah.
definitely see. Okay. All right. So African witch doctor. Okay. Let's want to talk about metaphysics here.
Okay.
Um, when I asked you when we first met, and you told me that you were a doctor of metaphysics, I asked you to give me a simplified definition of what metaphysics is, and you said it is. The metaphysics is the study of energy and matter, and
Absolutely.
that we are energy and matter. So essentially, metaphysics is the study of self. Right.
Absolutely. Yes.
So,
Very simple, a simple way of breaking it down. Yeah.
okay. So you said you saw African witch doctor. Africa, that's where our roots are. Okay. So I want to deal
Hmm.
with three words here. I want to deal with roots. I want to deal with energy, and I want to deal with matter. Okay.
Okay.
So we're going to go back to your roots, back when you were a child. Okay.
Hmm.
What type of energy was around you that mattered so much that it was with you as a child, it stayed with you into adolescence, then went with you into adulthood, and essentially led you to becoming a doctor of metaphysics? What exactly was that energy?
Wow, that's a great question. It's loaded.
I know it
That's a
is.
loaded question. Oh, wow. I can't say that it was one thing. I think that it was a collection of things that led me here. Um, Matter of fact, I think it was everything that led me to here because I think that there is no accidents. Um, I believe that everything leads us to ourselves. So the Bible says that the end was known before the beginning. And I believe that. So I think everything that goes on is essentially what leads you to you, um, in a sense. So, but if and let me see if I can pinpoint some things. um, okay, so as a child, I was the child that asked why. I wanted to know why. I was the why child. And I've always been extremely curious and I wanted to know the answer um, to everything. So, I was the child that questioned my parents. My sister used to get so upset because we were raised in kind of a dictatorship household. You know, ask why. My mama was the mama that said, because I said so. But I was the child that said, but why? I don't understand. And that has followed me my whole life. So between that and very curious and strong-willed and stubborn, I can say in so many senses. I was the child that my mom said she didn't buy popular tennis shoes or designer tennis shoes. So I remember at a very, very young age, probably about 10, saying I wanted a particular pair of tennis shoes. And this might tell my age, but oh, okay. But that's when those Reebok classics, those all white Reebok classics or the all black was popular. And I wanted some Reebok classics. And she was
Yeah.
like, I don't spend much on tennis shoes. And if you want that, you gotta buy it yourself. So I was the child that went out at 11 years old and started babysitting, and did it frequent to bring in money. And it went from that to 14 years old in a shop, as an assistant, 16-year-old renting a booth, having full clientele by the time I was 18, purchasing my first home. So I was that child. I was that child that was going to figure it out and make a way. If I wanted to do it, it was going to happen. Like there was no such thing as it not happening. Um, and I remember at probably early 20s, mid 20s, really, and I was raised very, very, very rigid Christianity, very rigid. Been in church my whole life, lived in church. Come from a family full of pastors and evangelists and all of that. So I remember a mid 20s life getting kind of, by this time I'm married, late 20s, by this time I'm married, life is much more complicated than what I expected it to be, and really, really dug into my faith, um, and searched the Bible back and forth like they tell you to do, and um, was realizing that there has to be something more. Like, and I remember asking my mom, even as a young adult in my 20s, there has to be something more. We're missing something. There's a piece that we are missing because I've watched people in church their whole life, and this is not all. It's not all, but I've watched people in church their whole life and still um, be, you know, mad or angry or hurt or sick or financially strapped. And the Bible said, greater things shall we do. And I wanted to know where the greater was. I wanted to see that in manifesting form. So I was like, there gotta be something more. And it began me asking the question, because when I couldn't get the answers on the outside of me from people, I started, praying. And that prayer was, God, I don't want to know what they said about you. I don't want to know. I don't want to know what they wrote about you. I don't want to know what people said about you. I want you to teach me who you are and who I am in you. And that shook my world. Everything I thought I knew, yeah, I realized I didn't know anything. And I've prayed some really, really big prayers because another one was teach me truth in all things and never let me be deceived. So a lot of things I thought I knew, I realized I didn't. And then I began to be taught from the inside versus from the outside, if that makes sense, versus somebody telling me that this is the way to do, actually going in and listening to the God that lives and dwells in me, the God of all things. I know that
So
was long.
so so the simple answer to that is that the energy that was around you was pretty much why. Just why, asking the question why, never being satisfied with what's just given to you. So there's this inquisitive, but inquisitive on a spiritual level type of energy that is around you.
Well, now on a spiritual level, because I understand that it is all spiritual. I mean, we're more spiritual than we are physical. As a child, it was definitely on a physical level of, why can't I do what I want to do when I want to do it? Why can't I
Right,
have what I want when I want
right. Okay. So, okay. So another thing. So, witch doctor. So you say you saw an African witch doctor. So originally, witch doctors were healers, and they would heal, people who were suffering from ailments as a result of witchcraft. Witchcraft, of course, can have a mental, physical, psychological impact, but I kind of want to deal more so with emotional right now. Um, the emotional, um, with metaphysics. How
it.
does metaphysics work with healing a person from emotional trauma?
Well, metaphysics teaches that there is a spiritual cause for everything. There is nothing that is um, that is just that there is an actual spiritual cause for everything. So the old wise teachers would teach there's no such thing as a uncurable disease or such. There's only uncurable people.
Hmm.
So even as at an emotional sense, there is a spiritual reason, there's a spiritual cause for everything that exists. There's one teacher that I absolutely love, which is Abraham Hicks. And she teaches that, that God, which is source, people that have many names for God, whatever you choose to call God, because it is all things. Um, when you choose against that, so God lives in all of us, right? There, the Spirit lives in every last one of us. And when you are thinking differently from the God that's within you, then you will feel a discomfort within yourself. And I love that explanation, and I can. I yeah, I love that explanation. I think it explains it very, very well.
Hmm. Okay. So if we were back during, let's say, back in Africa,
Hmm.
before we were dragged here,
Hmm.
with you being a doctor of metaphysics, because metaphysics has been here since the beginning of time, clearly. So if you were a doctor of metaphysics back then, would you have been considered a witch doctor?
That's an interesting question, and I've never thought about that. You know what's crazy?
Was
I'm
that?
gonna say this. I was at my parents' house one day, and again, I'm from a very, very rigid Christianity family. Okay, very rigid. Um, and one of my uncles um, that started asking me questions just about energy. And we can talk about energy another time, but what that really is, because people get it really, really confused, especially if you were raised Christian or raised a certain way, that just the word energy itself sometimes can get a little tricky for people.
Mhm.
But he was asking questions. And my father looked at my uncles and said, back in the day, she would have been considered a witch. And I just kind of looked at him like, but I understood where he was coming from because people have such negative connotations with things that they don't understand.
Mhm.
So
Right.
people put names and attach names to things, and then they stick a premise behind it, and all the time that's not so true. So let's talk about witches. Witches were able to do things that people didn't understand why they were able to do it. So they deemed them demons or something bad, but in actuality, we all are pieces of God, and God is all things. So
Mhm.
if you get down to spiritual law, we all have the ability to call things to ourselves. And if we go biblically, think about it, and people, this might get a little deep. But think about it. Jesus turned water into wine, but they didn't demonize him. You
Right.
know,
Mhm.
and I think we get it twisted. So when you learn how to use the law of the land and how God created, and all that means is how God created the universe. That's all that is. The premise in which the that God created this universe and how to operate in it. That's it. That's all. We don't have to complicate that. So when you operate in that, you most of the time you can manifest things or bring things to you, and people don't understand it, but it's the same principle that we use in Christianity. I mean, there were people that could lay hands on people and heal them, and
Mhm.
that's just energy. They mystified it and they couldn't explain it, but what it was is an exchange of energy.
Okay.
So they kind of deem things bad that they don't understand. So
Hmm.
I guess that probably would have been considered a
Yeah.
witch.
Right. And for the record, they weren't going to demonize Jesus because they were too happy that somebody showed up with the wine. So, I mean, if you're at a party and there's no alcohol and somebody shows up with alcohol, nobody's going to be like, "Look at this demon." No, everybody's happy.
But I mean, we it's time and time and time in the Bible that we could say that for, right? I
Mhm.
mean, when the Red Sea was parted, right?
Right. Hmm.
When which disciple? Let me think. Hold up, I'm drawing a blank. But there was a disciple that put the spear in the water, and the water turned to blood, right?
Hmm. Wasn't
So
that
there was
Moses?
time
Didn't
after
Moses do that?
time after time where we could. if you wanted to, you say, well, how did that happen? Well, yeah, they did it in the name of God. And we do everything in the name of God because God is all things, whether you want to acknowledge that or not. God, source, whatever you want to call it. And some people call it the universe. And people don't even understand that premise of people calling it the universe, but that's what the understanding that God is all things.
Right.
You know, it's
Yeah.
not a lack of respect. It's the acknowledgement of God is all things.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. What was that Moses that did that? I said that earlier, but I need you to correct me if I'm wrong. I can't remember. But was that Moses that did
I,
that with the staff?
I think so, and I'm drawing a blank. Yeah, absolutely, yes, you're
Okay.
right.
All right.
You're
All
right.
right. I just want to make sure I wasn't wrong. But if we're both wrong, somebody's going to correct us. So
I'm sure, and that's perfectly fine. That is perfect. I would
right.
correct. I'm not, I'm not
Look,
without correction.
I'm open to being wrong and I'm open to being corrected. So
Absolutely, absolutely. But so I think people with the understanding that you can call anybody who whatever you want to call them, but if we work under the premise of God is good and that there's good energy and there's bad energy, um, then if people deem witches a bad energy, then I guess I couldn't be considered a witch because I operate in the oneness of God at all times, as much as I possibly can.
well, there are good witches like Glinda. I mean, you could be a good witch.
I mean, people have the right to call whatever anything they want to call.
Hmm.
Um, the what's interesting about that is I am happier than I've ever been in my life,
Hmm.
and I am closer and in oneness with God more than I've ever been in my life.
Hmm.
And the things that I questioned why wasn't happening now are. So anybody can call it anything they want to.
Right.
But all I know is that we have the ability to enjoy this life and to be happy. We have the ability. I was sick for a very, very long time, and I kept hearing God. I kept praying, God heal me, God heal me, God heal me, God heal me, and I kept hearing God say, heal thyself. And I
Hmm.
was saying, God, I just need you to heal me. And I kept hearing God say, heal thyself.
Hmm.
So I think a lot of times we haven't been taught who we really are. We haven't been taught that we are pieces of God. We are
Hmm.
literally pieces of God having a human experience. And we are able to do incredible things. That's why Jesus said, greater things shall you do. But we never can get to the greater because most people deem themselves different or separate from who they really are.
Yeah. So short answer, you're a witch doctor. Got it. Got it. Okay, witch doctor. So we're gonna move on to this next picture. So, what was it that you said you saw here?
I said a butterfly. I saw a butterfly.
Okay, can you break that down for me?
Okay, so on both sides, the wings kind of go out in the top and the wings kind of go out at the bottom. And then that middle looks like the body of the butterfly.
Hmm.
So it looks like a butterfly in flight.
Okay, got you. Okay, so I got a little story. When my
Okay.
mother was a little, when my mother was a little girl, I believe somebody told her this. I don't know if she actually tried to do this. If she did try to do it, she was not successful. But somebody told her that if she caught a butterfly and bit its head off, then she would get a dress the same color of its wings. I can't remember if she said she chased this, but I actually just called her before we started podcasting because I was trying to remember if she actually tried to do it. Um, but she was working, so she texted me. She said I'll have to call you back, so I'll find out later. Um, and she's going to be watching this too. So like in my mind, I really wish that she would have chased the butterfly, caught the butterfly, and bit its head off because that would be a much better story. But it didn't happen that way. Um, not saying she didn't chase the butterfly, she may have, but she never caught it. So anyway, um, but I think that that is as ridiculous as it may sound to adults. I think it's amazing when we're looking at kids and their imagination. I love when
Okay.
a child's imagination just runs wild and just goes places, because oftentimes that is like the basis for a creative child, somebody that's about to get out there and just do all kinds of creative things, be involved in the arts or whatever, and be an innovator, an inventor, all of these things. The people that make the world go round, it's the creators, the inventors, the innovators. We are the ones that make the world go round. So, um, I want to talk about your imagination as a child. Like, what was
Okay.
your imagination as wild as wanting to run down a butterfly and bite its head off so you could get a dress the same color of its wings?
Um, it was pretty wild. It was pretty wild, and it still is. It
Okay.
still is. And when it wasn't, I've learned how to regain it because now I understand the beauty of it. But even as a child, yeah, I was super imaginative and creative, and um, didn't know it back then. But that's how you manifest. Actually,
Hmm.
that's how you manifest. That's the beginning of a manifestation.
Right.
So, but yeah, I was really creative, and I could see a thing, and again, that's where that I could see it, and I wasn't gonna let it go until I had it, until
Hmm.
I did it. It came from, you have to imagine it first. But yeah, I was a pretty imaginative child. I was that child that would sit down and cut all my Barbie's hair off and take the Kool-Aid and dye it red and take a pair of shirt and cut it up and could sew it into an outfit for the Barbie. I was that child.
Okay. Okay. So sticking with that butterfly. So one of the stages,
Mhm.
one of the stages of the life cycle of butterfly is when it molts into a chrysalis. Now that chrysalis is an exoskeleton which protects the butterfly as it goes through its metamorphosis or its changing, right? And so my question to you is, what type of changes have you had to endure? And while you were going through these changes, did you feel protected?
Wow. Of course, yeah, I've gone through a lot of changes, especially on this journey of learning oneness. Um, did I feel protected? So at times, yes, and at times, no. But at the times that I didn't feel protected is when God would assure me that I was.
Hmm.
So I am one that has visions and dreams and can see in the spirit. So there was a time where I was sitting and I was in meditation, and I could see it was like people was in the just people beyond people was congregated in the street, and this was a vision. It was in the street, and it was so far that I could not see the end of it. And within me, I knew those were my people. Those were my people. Those were my ancestors. Those were my people. Those were the people that walked with me. And I remember calling my mentor and telling her what I had just saw, because at the beginning I was so excited I would call her and tell her everything. Oh, this just happened. Oh, this just happened. Um, and she says, now do you? is there any need to be concerned? And I was like, nope. And I really know that that was God's way of showing me that I'm very, very well protected. I'm very well protected. I'm always protected.
Hmm.
So, yes, through all these changes and all of these difficult times, yeah, I've always felt, well, when I didn't feel protected, I was always reminded that I was protected.
Right. Okay. So sticking with that butterfly. So butterflies, they
Okay.
are a symbol of both change and beauty. But butterflies are also insects. Now, typically, we we outside or whatever, we don't really pay attention to insects. I mean, unless we're being attacked by one. But but typically, you don't really pay attention to them. Flies fly by, there bugs or ants, whatever, crawling. You just walk by them. You don't pay them any mind, right? But butterflies are different. Butterflies catch your eye. Butterflies grab your attention. We get focused on their beauty. We get focused on their grace. Just the way that they fly. We get kind of locked in with butterflies, and we don't even really see them as insects. And we definitely don't see them as insignificant as we see the other insects. So I want to talk about life coaching right now.
Okay.
How is it? How do you get a person when you're life coaching? How do you get a person to start seeing themselves not as insignificant anymore, but getting them to see their beauty and their grace?
Well, one of the premises of life coaching is that I am not their answer. I am the facilitator to ask the questions to get them to their answer. They are their answer. So teaching them that they are the answer, that the answer lies directly within them. Um, and that's huge. You are your answer.
Mhm.
So just really facilitate. I just really facilitate and ask the right questions to get them to that point, and helping them to realize that they are their answer and it lies within them, um, and they have everything that they need within them, and being able to show them that through the process.
Okay, got you. So with life coaching, because I'm a life coach as well.
Mhm.
I have done, with the research that I've done on life coaching and your role as a life coach. I think I realized that I do it wrong. I don't really do it the way, I guess, when they set up life coaching. I don't really do it in that manner. I do more of therapy, the type of things that you would do with a psychologist, and I think that that's probably because I've been in front of so many psychologists. I've studied psychology extensively, not in a formal institution, but I just did it on my own. I just did it on my own, and I've learned so much about myself and about psychology and just how to apply it. But because of the amount of things that I've been through, I think that God has put me in a position to be able to help other people and to get people to connect their dots. So every time I come across somebody who is a life coach, I want to ask these questions because I know I'm not the typical life coach. I don't do things the way everybody else does it. Um, and they probably, like whoever invented this whole life coaching thing, would probably want to kick me out and say, no, you can't do it. You think you're a therapist. Well, I'm not going to school to become a therapist. Okay. And the course to become a life coach was a whole lot shorter than the time I would have had to spend in school to become a therapist. So, but I do also see life coaching as a form of therapy. So, do you see it that way as well?
I mean, there's a very very fine line, and for me, I try not to cross it because I understand that as a therapist, they're licensed to do a thing, and I'm licensed to do a thing. So I don't cross that line because I don't want to get sued. I won't play like that. Now, there are times I do spiritual counseling. So because I do spiritual counseling, if I am counseling somebody, then I will give my opinion. Um, but it's just that it's my opinion based on whatever the situation is. And with life coaching, that's a little different. So with my clients, the great thing about it is when we talk, I open the door to be able to. Sometimes we'll have a coaching session. Sometimes we'll have a spiritual counseling session. Sometimes we'll have readings. It just depends on that client and what they need at that time. And I'm able to do that. So the certifications in herbalist and so there's I'm kind of somewhat like you to the degree of there's been a lot of study and a lot of different things, but it all forms together to make this one beautiful practice. But as far as a therapist is concerned, I stay out of that lane because I understand that I'm not licensed for that.
Hmm. Got you. Um, I don't know where, when, or if I cross that line, but I don't really care. I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing because, as far as I'm concerned, what I'm doing is helping people. I've had so many people tell me that it's helped. So I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing. I'm going to keep doing it that way. The other thing is this: I'm not worried about getting sued because I don't charge people for life coaching. I don't do it.
Right.
And the reason I don't do it is because I don't ever want somebody to be dealing with some sort of pain, and then they come to me and they need me, and they're like, "Well, I don't have the money," and I'm like, "Well, then I can't afford to help you." I can't turn away a person's pain. I can't turn away their trauma. So I just was like, you know what, just not charging at all. So I never charge. I never charge for that. So I guess I'm not so concerned about getting sued, or I'm not concerned about titles either. I'm really not, because in my mind, all of this is made up.
Yeah.
All of this is made up. So I could go start my own branch of therapy and call it whatever. Somebody started life coaching, gave it
Right.
that name, and whatever rules or whatever it is that falls under that, they gave that also. I could go start my own thing. All of this is made up. So
So I'm glad you said that because I was going to say I was going to wait until we got finished with this. So I was going to tell you I'm not really into titles. So you said witch doctor. I didn't say that because I'm not really into titles. So I just wanted to clarify that up real fast for you. But I understand what you're saying. But we're definitely living in this world at this time with all these guidelines.
mhm,
So I mean, you can do it however you want to, but for me, if I were you, I would come up with my own creative word for it, and I would leave therapists out of it just because that's a loaded word, and what comes with it and what follows it. You can have your own format, your own thing, or
mhm.
whatever, but just I would be careful.
Yeah, and I don't call myself a therapist, but I do say that what I do is therapeutic.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm definitely not a therapist. Definitely not a
Yeah.
therapist.
Yeah. I
Although
would
people
definitely
people
have
call
those
me the therapist.
disclaimers.
What'd you say?
I said I would definitely have those disclaimers because I'm quick to tell
Yeah.
people I am not a medical doctor. Listen,
Hmm.
whatever I tell you, please take it to your medical doctor because even when I'm coaching, and we're talking about supplements or health wise and things that they could do naturally to help assist their bodies,
Hmm.
I'm quick to say, listen, please go to your doctor first and
Right.
make sure it's okay with them. You
Right.
know.
Hmm. Yes, and I definitely do that with when it comes to because I'm a master herbalist and a nutritionist as well. Definitely do that with and personal trainer. So there are a lot of instances where I'm like, okay, you need to check with your doctor first. But
Absolutely.
there are also instances where I'm like, I don't care what your doctor says, I got this. But I only do that when I know I'm right. That's the only time I do it. When I know
Now,
for a fact.
most of my clients will do that. So I have clients be like, I ain't asking them. Listen, as long as I put the disclaimer out there and say,
Right,
look, you know,
right. You
Definitely
did your
talk to
part.
your doctor. I did my part. Now, what you do
Yeah.
with the information from there is up to you.
Mhm.
And whether you're going to run that by your doctor, that's on you. But I definitely make sure I put that disclaimer out. But I do have clients that be like, I ain't asking my doctor nothing. I'm about to do this. But,
Yeah.
people a lot of times don't understand supplements. So supplements are mostly food.
Mhm.
Um, so as long as you don't have allergies to food, everything that I usually recommend you can find in your food. So it's more food based. It's
Mhm.
just in a supplement form, and a lot of people don't understand that either.
Right.
Um,
Mhm. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the next thing that you said you saw. All right. So what did you say you saw here?
Address.
Okay. You want to? I can. I think it's pretty obvious, but you can go ahead and break down the picture too. But I think it's pretty obvious stuff. But go ahead.
Yeah, the arms on both sides and the body in the middle. It looks like a dress.
Hmm. Yes. Now, when I first looked at this, I didn't see a dress, but once you said you saw a dress, I was like, "Oh, that clearly is a dress." And I don't even remember what I saw when I first saw it anymore because all I see is a dress now. But I want to go back to that story about my mama and wanting to
Okay.
bite the head off of a butterfly to get a dress the same color. So now, if she were to actually do that, and I'm pretty certain, if somebody said this to her, then somebody tried to do this. Like, and the sick, twisted part of my mind is really hoping that somebody actually caught a butterfly and bit the head off of it. The even more sick, twisted part of my mind wishes there was footage. But anyway,
I'm not
um,
with you there. I'm just not with you. I don't stand with you there, okay? I don't. I just want to make it very clear. I don't stand with you on that one, okay?
we eat animals every day. Like, so what? Okay, all right. I didn't mean so what because we love the butterflies anyway. But anyway, so but the but you would typically think the dress is something that I want, but biting the head off a butterfly is something that I don't want to do. So I want to talk about you having to do things that you don't want to do to get what you want. Like,
Hmm.
have you done that? And
Um.
if so, are you willing to share a time that it's happened?
Oh, it has happened a lot of times because in this process, you grow, and I am committed to growing and being the best that I can be. And that's a continuous thing because I can't outgrow God. Like, I remember in the beginning of this particular journey, in this particular phase, I was going into a workshop and I reached for the door and I heard God say, just as clear, anything that doesn't grow is dead. Anything that doesn't grow is dead. So I am definitely, and I understood what that meant. I mean, because we have a lot of people that's walking around dead. they're, they're walking, literally walking around dead, spiritually dead. You know, so there has been lots and lots of times through this process when you are committed to growing and becoming and constantly becoming. Everybody is not with you there. Everybody's not gonna go on that pace,
Hmm.
on the same pace as you are. And I can't say that they won't grow. There's some people that are I'm sure you've heard, just like I've heard, I'm happy with where I am and I ain't going nowhere. This is who I am and this is who I'm gonna be. And and they literally say that out their mouths, and that's how they truly, truly feel.
Right.
So there are people that aren't committed to evolving and growing and becoming. And because of that, regardless in this process, I understand that that means that sometimes people are removed and or some people can't stay. And even when you try to hold on to them, a lot of times it doesn't happen. Um, so it's biblical, it's biblically So, they used to say, you can't be unequally yoked. And
Mhm.
I used to think that meant the way that it was kind of taught to me, or how I perceived it, is that that meant that two people had to be the same religion.
Right.
But I now understand that like attracts like, and that means that the same energy, the same frequency. So when you meet somebody, you're on the same frequency. We're nothing. It's scientifically proven that we are energy. Science, that's scientifically proven, cut dry. That's not my opinion. That's science. We are energies, right? And biblically, in the Hebrew Bible, it talks about the energy in Genesis. It talks about the energy of God hovering over the water. It doesn't say the spirit. Now, when they translated it, they changed it to the spirit of God. But in the Hebrew Bible, it says the energy of God, which was fascinating to me. So we are all pieces of energy because God is the massive energy that everything comes from, right?
Mhm.
So I break that down because a lot of times the old folks, oh, they were wise beyond measure. Those old folks used to say, "Oh, I just outgrew them," or they just, I just outgrew them. And there isn't such thing as outgrowing someone, because, and it's not in a negative connotation, that a bad way, but there is a such thing, if when you meet, you're on the same frequency. So it's almost like the same radio station. You're on the same radio station. You can hear the same songs. Y'all singing the same music. But the
Mhm.
minute one decides to move and to grow, then you're on different stations. Now communication is not so great. Y'all have a hard time understanding each other. Y'all have a hard time getting along because you're on two different radio stations. You're on two different
Hmm. You just stalled on me.
Okay, am I back?
Okay, there you go. So you said you're on two different radio stations and two different.
Two different frequencies.
Okay. Mhm.
So, in this particular journey, I've learned that just because I don't take it personal anymore. So it used to be, oh, they don't love me no more. Or I don't take it personal. I understand that if I continuously grow, and it's okay if they decide to stay where they are, or don't grow at the same rate, or that's not their focus, that eventually we're going to grow apart from each other. And
Right.
in this particular, that was hard. That was hard at the beginning, because when I started this particular journey, I was married. It wasn't the best marriage. It wasn't the best marriage, but I was married. But so there have been some relationships that I had to let go of, or that we just flew apart. Um, and it just is, the more you grow, the farther apart you get. And that's a hard thing. That could be hard.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. So, um, oracle readings.
Hmm.
So the oracle readings, correct me if I'm wrong, but oracle readings are about self-reflection and the truth, correct?
Well, they tend to bring, so a lot of times, you've sprung up a lot of great things. So I'm gonna take us back to what you said, back in the days, our native self, right?
Hmm.
Um, Back in the day, our ancestors, there was no TVs, there were no radios, there wasn't a lot of distraction. So they had a lot of time to spend with themselves, and they could enter here. They could enter here the God that was in them, and they were so in tune, and so in touch with themselves, and with God that dwelled in them, that they could pick up on lots and lots and lots of things, and they realized that everything talked, and they were connected to everything. There wasn't anything that they were connected to. So even to the point where people get it twisted, when the Indians used to say the sun god, they would pray to the sun god, right? And a lot of people, because of lack of understanding, they would be offended because God ain't a son, but God is all things, and that's what the Bible tells us, that God is all things. And if God is all things, God is the son. What they were doing was they were paying homage to the peace of God that was the son. And they knew that we were connected to all of it. So they knew that they could talk directly to the God that was the sun. And they could talk to the God that was in the form of rain. And they could talk to the God that was in the form of this. And they could go directly to that piece of, or that form of God. And because there was a mutual respect between them, they could communicate in that way and make beautiful things happen. So I say all that to say, because everything speaks to us. Everything speaks to us. Even in the Bible, it says, if you don't praise God, then the rocks will praise him, right?
Mhm.
Everything speaks to us. So oracle cards are nothing more than another way that that we're being spoke to. And with the premise that if we draw everything to us, we're drawing the information to us. And there has not been one reading that I've done that the person didn't understand. It was just confirmation. I can't tell you anything you don't know. A lot of times we don't want to hear what
Mhm.
we're already being told. We kind of will ignore it. We've been taught not to pay attention to our feelings, that feelings are weak or emotions are weak, but they're actually our guidance system. So when it comes to you, you're drawing it to you. I'm not drawing it to you. You're drawing it to you. So it's usually just strictly confirmation of what you already know.
So, so there is, I guess, to a certain degree, there is truth and self-reflection. It does,
Absolutely,
it does
absolutely.
lead you there. Okay, so with that being said, now I want to talk about this dress. Okay, this dress that you said you saw. So sometimes, people are able to use that a flashy dress or just flashy attire, period, to cover up what's really going on inside. That flashy attire or that flashy dress is sometimes it's a distraction for what the person is actually dealing with. It gives
Okay.
you a different perception of what they're going through at that moment, right? But once they're able
Hmm.
to get home, take off that dress or take off that attire. Now they're just left to deal with the naked truth.
Hmm.
Was that something that you had to do, that you had to deal with before you got to a place of being able to do these readings for other people? Did you have to go through where you were just stripped of everything and you were forced to look at yourself and see that naked truth before you were able to help other people see that in themselves?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this particular journey has been this particular phase has been for about maybe about 13 years.
Mhm.
And through that journey, like I said, everything I thought I knew, I realized I didn't.
Okay.
And there's so many different phases where that happens, and it continues to happen. I mean, it doesn't end. I don't. At the beginning of this, you want to hurry up and you want to, get the work in. We call it doing the math, but my teacher, my master teacher, we would call it doing the math. So in the beginning, you just want to hurry up and do the work. You just want to get the work done. But
Mhm.
then, as now I realize there's no such thing. You're going to constantly uncover. You're going to constantly unfold. But yes, there was lots and lots of situations where I had to get naked. Just recently, I did a live through the new practice. And the subject was the lies I told myself,
Hmm.
um, under the premise that the way that I was raised, um, you just kind of keep those feelings and you push them in a box and you keep it moving. You don't address them.
Mhm.
And it almost causes you to live a lie. You put on a mask and you act like everything is okay and you keep it moving. And it
Mhm.
wasn't until I learned that the same things that I tried to hide or I tried to cover was the same things that once I allowed to come to the surface and deal with it is the same things that set me free. So the Bible says that you should know the truth and the truth should set you free.
Mhm.
And that has a brand new meaning now to me because everything that I tried to not deal with, everything that I tried to cover up, everything that I tried to not deal with was the very things that was holding me hostage. And it wasn't until I was able to get naked, and that took help, and that's where coaching is so beautiful. It wasn't until I was able to really face myself and allow those things to come to the surface and tell myself the truth that I was set free.
Okay. That was you know, when I feel like sometimes we have to go through things, and before we can help other people we have to go through things, kind of like being on the plane, and they tell you put your oxygen mask on first before you help somebody else. It's like you have to go through something first to protect yourself. um you have to go through the growing process, which sometimes involves growing pains, and it allows you to get to a place where you're able to look back, connect your dots, and then help other people connect theirs. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I
Absolutely.
get it.
Most of us live life on autopilot. We just doing, and
Mhm,
we'll stay so busy with everybody else's stuff, and
mhm,
we'll create stuff so that we don't have to deal with our
right.
stuff.
Hmm.
It's a coping mechanism so that we don't have to look at ourselves. There's so many people that keep themselves so busy that they don't have any quiet time because they don't want to hear their own thoughts.
Hmm.
And a lot of times it's that very thing to allow yourself to hear your thought and then deal with the thought that begins to set you free.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well, look, what we are going to do now is a little part of the show I call flip the script. So what I'm going to do is all of these pictures that I've shown you, I'm going to turn them upside down,
Okay.
and then I'm going to tell you what I see. So based off of what I see, I want you to choose just one of these pictures and ask me a question based off of what I said I saw.
Okay, I'm gonna try. You too good at this. You do this
I know,
well.
right? So here's the first picture where you said you saw an African witch doctor. So this is that same picture upside down. Upside down, this picture looks like the female reproductive system to me. Are you able to see that?
Okay.
Okay, I'll take that as a
Okay.
yes.
I can see that.
Okay, so
Mhm.
this picture you said you saw a dress. So here's that same picture
Mhm.
upside down. I see the face of a fly. I see like, but looking almost as if there's an aerial view. So I'm looking down on the head. I see the eye. So the white part, the white part that looks like the eyes on the side of the fly's head. And
Okay.
I don't know if flies have noses, but it looks like the nose, the little pointy thing at the bottom that looks like the fly's nose.
Okay.
Um,
I can see that.
and what you said, you see it?
I can see where you coming. Yeah,
Okay.
where you coming from.
Okay. And the third picture is, where is it? Here we go. So right here, you said you saw a butterfly,
Right.
and upside down, it looks like two angels that are guiding a plane, guiding an airplane. So it looks like the angels are, they're either guiding it or they're praying under, like maybe their hands are like cupping up under it. So maybe they're either praying under the wings of the airplane or they're guiding it. Now under them, it looks like two buffalo fighting over a diamond.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, so which one of these pictures would you like to use to ask me a question?
Oh wow. Okay. Can I use two of them?
Yes, you can use two. That works. Let's do it.
Okay. So the first one, you said you saw a female reproduction system,
Right.
right?
Uh-huh.
So there's such a big meaning to that. So women bring forth life, right? Which is a huge thing. And even in the spiritual world, Mother Nature. So I remember asking God, well, who is Mother Nature? And I remember God saying that is the female aspect of me, that is the female energy of me. So the female energy brings upon life, right?
Right.
Um, when did you understand, or better question, was there a time when you did not understand the bigness and the wholeness of what a female carries in this world?
No, it's never been a time that I haven't understood it. And I think large part of that is because of the mother that I have. My mother is the matriarch of our family. She is the backbone, the strongest and wisest person that I know. And so that has always been, that was my first example. That has always been my example of what a woman represents: that strength, that beauty, that resilience. Um, but I remember, so when I was 6 years old, that's when my parents separated. Okay. And when my parents separated, my father told me, he said, take care of your mother. So I said, okay. I always remembered that. And I'm like super, I'm like really overprotective of my mama. But what that did for me was it translated to not only her, but to every woman in my life. That meant you protect, you cherish, you honor, you respect. Um, all of these things, this is how you are to treat women. Um, and and the ones that are in your life, you make sure you hold them near and dear to you. But you look at women for who they are, what they bring to this world. Without y'all, we ain't here. Now, granted, y'all need us too, but you all are the ones that actually bring the life into this world. You couldn't depend on us for that. Humanity would have been wiped out a long time ago if you had to depend on men to have babies. So um, but just the power and the strength and the beauty of a woman is, I'm telling you, it's something that I've always recognized, but I've always had that example of that very thing. I've always had a woman right there that is has, and it's effortless for her. It's just who she is, and it's who she came from. My grandmother was the same way, you know. And then I watch the way people react to her. And look, you're gonna have to shut me up. I can sit there and talk all day about my mama, but
I think it's beautiful.
but because of that, I just have been able see the to see that strength, see that beauty, in all women, in all women. I think one of the biggest lines, one of the biggest things that I ever heard Tupac say in Dear Mama, he said, even as a crack fiend, mama, you always was a black queen, mama. That right
Yeah,
there, that type of strength at a woman who is at her most vulnerable point, but still honoring her and putting her on such a high pedestal. Even in the midst of the things that other people, you may look at her and say, oh, she's a crackhead, she's a crack fiend, or whatever. It doesn't matter what you say. That is still a black queen.
right.
And that's just a demon that she's fighting. It is her vulnerabilities. It is whatever. But we all have our demons. We all have our vulnerabilities, but it does not replace that crown that is on your head. So no, I have never ever in my life not seen that in women because I've
Right.
always had the example. So
That was pretty great. That's pretty
thank you. Okay, so you said you wanted to ask me two questions. So
okay.
was it based off another picture?
It was based off another picture.
Okay.
Um, so let's do this. I know we way over time. We
That-
always do
We
this.
fine. We are completely fine. Don't worry about it.
Okay. So the last picture you showed me,
Okay, so where is it? This one.
the last picture you showed me. Okay. So you said that you saw two angels
Hmm.
holding up a plane,
Hmm.
and it looked like two. Did you say buffaloes
Right. Yeah, it looks like
holding
two
it up?
buffalo fighting over a diamond.
Okay.
Hmm.
So the question is, and this is going to be quick because yeah, I'm about to my phone is about to die. I need to look it up.
Okay.
Um, is it's interesting that you saw an angel at the top and then a diamond at the bottom. Has there ever been a time when you saw what you would consider a diamond? It could have been yourself, it could have been a situation, it could have been a thing that you wanted to accomplish, and you felt like there was angels around you that was guiding you to that place.
Yes, I actually feel that right now. Um, I felt like that probably at every point in my life. Just because I felt since I was a kid that God had a plan for me, right? And all things with God are perfect. So God's plan is perfect, right? So diamonds are flawless, right? Well, in dealing with that, and I'll even take it to the buffalo, I've had things tugging at the things that are flawless, the gifts that God has given me. So let's say that diamond is the gift that God has given me. I've had these things tugging at that, trying to throw me off course or just trying to rip it away from me, right? Um, my angels, that plane is going, it's ascending, right? It's going up, and that's where my gift is actually leading me. But I can't do this without the assistance of my angels around me. I have known that my entire life, that I can't get to where I'm going without the assistance of God and without the assistance of the angels that He has placed around me, and that they have to be there to protect this gift that God has given me. So yes, I've always known that. Mhm.
I love that answer. That was great. That was pretty great.
That's fun. You know what? I like being on the other side. I like when people asking me questions.
You did pretty good with that question, didn't you?
Thank
You
you.
did
Thank you. Well, look, we are about to wrap up for two reasons. One, your phone is dying. Two, we're at the end. There's nothing else left to say. So, before we get out of here, though, I just want you to let everybody know exactly where they can find you if you want them to be able to get in contact with you, because it could be a metaphysical thing. They may need oracle readings. They may need some life coaching. So, how can people get in contact with you for these things?
They can look me up Facebook at Doc Nicole Thomas, or you can reach me on Instagram at Dr. Divine, or on TikTok on Dr. Divine, Doc Divine.
Okay, sounds good. Now, also, I know I mentioned it at the beginning of the show, but me and Dr. Nicole Thomas, we have our podcast, which actually will be premiering next week, and it is called The Why Behind the Why. I love the title. She came up with this title, by the way. I love this title. But we are pretty much giving a metaphysical explanation for everything. Everything. So, it is, well, she is going to be giving the metaphysical explanations. My role in this, I'm going to be the one asking the questions and leading us, or leading her to a point of being able to give us those explanations. So look forward to that show. That show will be Tuesday evenings at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific. You'll be able to find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram with the Why Behind the Why podcast. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. Nicole, thank you so much for this podcast. Thank you for your time. This has been ever since I've met you, I feel that I've grown. Our conversations, the conversations that you and I have, they always take a metaphysical turn. And then and for me, metaphysical and spiritual, they are hand in hand. So there's been so much spiritual growth that I have encountered, just simply from having conversations with you, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate you.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much.
You're
Thank
welcome. Don't you
you.
cry. Don't you
And
cry.
I absolutely adore you. I think you are the best ever. Um,
Thank
and so talented and so gifted. So thank you for having me. I
Mhm.
really appreciate the trust that you have put in me and the opportunity that you have provided. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. Well, okay. So before we get out of here, I have one more picture that I want to show you, but I want you to tell me exactly what it is that you see.
Here we go. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? If I would have known that you was going to put that on the screen, I have a dress that says I'm pretty dope. This chick is pretty dope. I would have worn my dress.
Yeah, but right now this is about the show, so I need you to say it.
This podcast is so dope, and it is.
And I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm going to talk to you later after your phone charges back up. Okay.
All right. All
All right.
right.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.